Hello, I'm seeing you. Very good voice here. Tell me which city do you hear from me? To know where this content is. Now let's go to the start of the message. Pay attention. There is a spiritual law older than money, older than kingdoms, older even than language itself. A law that was already in motion when the world was still without form and void. Before gold had value, before trade existed, before numbers were written, this law was already governing increase, limitation, flow, and blockage. And if you are listening to this now, it is not by accident. According to ancient Jewish wisdom, nothing truly meaningful happens by coincidence. There are only moments of alignment and moments of resistance. This is a moment of alignment. Welcome to Jewish wisdom. Before we enter the depth of what is about to be shared, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Your subscription is not a simple click. It is an act of agreement. An agreement that wisdom matters, that ancient truth still has authority, that you are willing to listen beyond surface-level motivation and enter a space where spiritual laws are taken seriously. When you subscribe, you are supporting the continuation of teachings that were once transmitted only in quiet rooms, from teacher to student, heart to heart. Now, pause for a moment, take a breath, and write this sentence in the comments. Slowly, consciously, with intention. I choose alignment. I receive growth, blessing, and abundance. Do not write it mechanically. Words, in Jewish thought, are vessels. What you write shapes what you invite. Most people spend their lives chasing abundance without ever asking themselves a far more important question. Am I positioned to receive it? The Torah never teaches that blessing is random. From Genesis onward, blessing is always connected to alignment. When Adam and Eve were aligned, the garden produced effortlessly. When alignment was broken, the ground itself resisted their labor. The soil did not become cursed because God was angry. It became resistant because order was violated. This is a pattern repeated throughout scripture, history, and human experience. In Hebrew, T word for blessing, bracha, is deeply connected to the idea of expansion and flow. But flow requires a channel, and a channel must be aligned. Water does not flow uphill unless forced. Light does not bend unless distorted. Abundance does not settle where spiritual laws are ignored. This is not punishment. It is physics of the unseen world. The sages teach that the universe operates on two parallel systems, visible laws and invisible laws. Visible laws govern matter. Invisible laws govern meaning, direction, and consequence. A person may work tirelessly, make intelligent decisions, and still feel as though something invisible is blocking progress. Jewish wisdom does not dismiss this feeling. It explains it. When invisible laws are violated, visible effort produces diminishing returns. King David captured this principle with stunning clarity when he wrote that the righteous person is like a tree planted by streams of water, yielding fruit in its season, whose leaf does not wither. Notice what he does not say. He does not say the tree struggles. He does not say the tree forces fruit to grow. The fruit appears because the position is correct. The location does the work. Modern culture teaches people to force outcomes. Ancient wisdom teaches people to choose alignment. One produces exhaustion. The other produces sustainability. From the very beginning, the Torah emphasizes order. Light is separated from darkness. Waters are divided. Boundaries are established. Each act of creation is an act of alignment. Chaos is not creative. Order is. And abundance flows from order, not from chaos disguised as freedom. Many people unknowingly live spiritually misaligned lives. They rush where patience is required. They hold on where release is needed. They give without intention and receive without discernment. They speak words that contradict their desires. And then they wonder why growth feels fragile, inconsistent, or temporary. The uncomfortable truth is this: abundance does not respond to desire alone. It responds to structure, to consciousness, to alignment. This is why Jewish tradition places such emphasis on daily practices, not as religious burdens, but as tools of alignment. The way a day begins matters. The way money is handled matters. The way rest is honored matters. The way words are spoken matters. Each of these choices either aligns the soul with flow, or subtly resists it. The book of Deuteronomy records a divine promise that is often misunderstood. If you carefully listen and walk in my ways, blessing will pursue you and overtake you. The original Hebrew implies something striking. Blessing is not chasing you because you are lucky. It is overtaking you because you are aligned. You are walking in the same direction. Misalignment creates friction. Alignment creates momentum. There is a reason this wisdom was preserved carefully. Not because it was secretive, but because it requires maturity. When people hear about spiritual laws without readiness, they try to manipulate outcomes instead of transforming themselves. Jewish wisdom does not teach control. It teaches harmony. The New Testament echoes this ancient truth when it says, "Whatever a person sows, that they will also reap." This is not a moral threat. It is a description of law. You do not reap what you wish for. You reap what you align with. Tonight, you are not being promised instant wealth. You are being invited into something far more powerful. Understanding. Understanding precedes transformation, and transformation begins the moment you stop asking, "How do I get more?" and start asking, "Where am I standing?" This message is not meant to entertain you. It is meant to reposition you. If something in you feels stirred, unsettled, or strangely calm as you listen, that is not emotion. That is recognition. Ancient truth resonates because the soul remembers it. Stay present. The ground is being prepared. The foundation of this understanding is rooted in a principle so ancient that it predates religion as people understand it today. In the Torah, alignment is never presented as a mystical abstraction. It is presented as a concrete condition for life to function as intended. When God speaks to Abraham and promises blessing, increase, and legacy, the promise is always connected to a direction. Go for yourself, he says. Not simply go anywhere, but go into alignment with the path prepared for you. Blessing follows movement in the correct direction. In the Hebrew language, words do not merely describe reality, they shape it. The Torah does not say, "If you believe in my laws," it says, "If you walk in my statutes." Walking implies rhythm, consistency, and orientation. You may stumble while walking, but as long as your direction is correct, you are still aligned. Jewish wisdom does not demand perfection. It demands positioning. This is why, in the book of Leviticus, the promise of abundance begins with alignment and ends with provision. Rain comes in its season. The land yields its produce. Trees bear fruit. None of these things are forced. They occur because creation recognizes order. Nature itself responds to alignment. The same spiritual architecture governs human prosperity. The sages teach that blessing cannot rest on contradiction. A person who speaks faith but lives in fear creates spiritual tension. A person who prays for increase but acts from scarcity creates resistance. This is not hypocrisy in the moral sense. It is misalignment in the energetic sense. And misalignment disrupts flow. Kabbalistic teachings explain this through the structure of the Sephirot, the channels through which divine light flows into the world. These channels are not abstract symbols. They represent actual spiritual dynamics. When human behavior aligns with these dynamics, light flows smoothly. When behavior contradicts them, light constricts. Abundance does not disappear. It becomes inaccessible. One of the most misunderstood concepts in Jewish wisdom is judgment. Judgment is not punishment. It is calibration. In Hebrew, the word din refers to measure, boundary, and proportion. Without judgment, kindness becomes chaos. Without structure, expansion becomes collapse. True abundance exists only where mercy and discipline are balanced. This balance is why the Torah repeatedly emphasizes weights and measures. Honest scales are not only a moral requirement, they are a spiritual necessity. A dishonest scale distorts reality. It creates imbalance. An imbalance, left unchecked, eventually manifests as loss. This principle is echoed powerfully in the Psalms, where David writes that God delights in truth in the inner being, not performance, not appearance. Alignment. Inner truth creates outer stability. A divided inner life produces divided outcomes. Even the rituals of Jewish life are built around alignment. Shabbat is not merely rest, it is recalibration. One day each week, time itself is brought back into harmony. Work stops not because effort is bad, but because unceasing effort without alignment leads to spiritual erosion. When time is honored, abundance is preserved. The New Testament reinforces this principle when it speaks of the eye as the lamp of the body. If the eye is single, the whole body is full of light. If the eye is divided, darkness follows. This is alignment language. A single eye is a unified direction. A divided eye is misalignment. Prosperity, in both Jewish and Christian theology, is never disconnected from consciousness. The Israelites wandered in the desert for 40 years not because the land was unavailable, but because their internal alignment was incomplete. Provision came daily, but inheritance waited for readiness. Milk and honey require vessels capable of sustaining them. This is why Jewish wisdom treats wealth with seriousness, rather than romanticism. Wealth amplifies alignment. It does not create it. When alignment is present, wealth becomes a tool for expansion and blessing. When alignment is absent, wealth becomes a source of anxiety, loss, or corruption. The ancient rabbis taught that a person's livelihood is determined on Rosh Hashanah, but its manifestation throughout the year depends on alignment. The flow is set, but the channels remain responsive. Prayer, action, intention, and correction all influence how smoothly that flow reaches the material world. Nothing in this system is arbitrary. Nothing is emotional. Everything is lawful. And this is why these teachings were transmitted with care, not because they were dangerous, but because misunderstanding them leads people to seek shortcuts instead of transformation. Alignment is not a trick. It is a return to the position where blessing recognizes you without effort. If you are listening closely, you may already sense that this wisdom is not new to you. It feels familiar because it speaks to something ancient within you. Something that has always known that life flows best when you stop fighting the order of creation and begin cooperating with it. This understanding is not meant to overwhelm you. It is meant to awaken discernment. Because once you recognize that abundance is a response to alignment, you stop blaming circumstances and start adjusting position. And position changes everything. Alignment is never proven in theory. It is proven in movement. Ancient Jewish wisdom does not measure spirituality by what a person knows, but by how that knowledge reshapes daily life. The sages were clear about this. Revelation without application becomes information, and information without application has no power to transform reality. Alignment must descend from understanding into behavior, otherwise abundance remains an idea rather than an experience. The first place alignment expresses itself is not in money, but in awareness. Jewish tradition teaches that consciousness precedes outcome. What you consistently notice, you eventually reinforce. What you consistently reinforce, you eventually become. This is why the Torah places such emphasis on remembrance. Remember the Lord your God, it says, for it is He who gives you the power to produce wealth. The verse does not say wealth itself is given. It says the capacity is given. Capacity must be activated through aligned action. One of the most practical expressions of alignment is intentional speech. In Hebrew thought, words are not passive. They are carriers of creative force. God creates the world through speech, and humans, made in the divine image, participate in that same mechanism on a smaller scale. When a person repeatedly speaks words of lack, fear, or inevitability, they are not describing reality, they are shaping it. Alignment begins when speech reflects trust instead of anxiety. This does not mean denying difficulty. Jewish wisdom never promotes denial. It promotes correct framing. There is a profound difference between saying I am struggling and saying I am blocked. Struggle implies movement. Blockage implies resignation. Alignment speaks in the language of movement, even when progress feels slow. Another daily expression of alignment is order. Disorder is not morally wrong, but spiritually costly. The sages taught that blessing does not rest in chaos. This is why Jewish life is structured around rhythms, times, and boundaries. Morning prayers, evening reflections, weekly rest, annual cycles. These are not restrictions. They are calibrations. They return the soul to its proper position. Money, in Jewish wisdom, is not separate from spirituality. It is one of its most sensitive indicators. How money is earned, handled, shared, and released reveals alignment more clearly than words ever could. A person can speak faith while hoarding from fear. A person can pray for increase while acting from scarcity. These contradictions create internal tension, and tension disrupts flow. This is why tzedakah is so central. It is not charity. It is justice. It restores balance. When a person gives from alignment rather than pressure, they are declaring trust in continuity. They are saying, I understand that flow does not end with me. This posture keeps channels open. Write this sentence in the comments now. Slowly and consciously, I act in alignment. And abundance responds. Alignment also expresses itself through timing. The Torah repeatedly emphasizes seasons. There is a time to sow and a time to reap. A time to advance and a time to pause. Many financial struggles are not caused by wrong actions, but by right actions taken at the wrong time. Impatience is a form of misalignment. So is delay born from fear. This is why Shabbat is one of the most radical abundance principles in Jewish wisdom. One day each week, productivity stops. Control is released. Trust is practiced. And paradoxically, this restraint preserves expansion. By stepping out of time, the soul is reminded that provision does not come from endless effort alone, but from alignment with divine order. Another practical dimension of alignment is correction. Jewish wisdom teaches that misalignment is inevitable, but persistence in misalignment is optional. This is why repentance, teshuvah, literally means return, not punishment, not shame. Return to position when correction is made, sincerely, channels reopened quickly. Heaven responds faster to realignment than to perfection. At this point, something important must be said clearly. If you enjoy content like this, and you want to support us so we can continue bringing teachings of depth and spiritual clarity like this, below the video there is a thank you button. If you are able to contribute, we would be truly grateful. Your support allows this wisdom to continue flowing to others who are searching for alignment and truth. Alignment is also expressed through discernment. Not every opportunity is meant for you. Not every open door leads to blessing. The Torah warns against haste disguised as faith. True alignment includes the courage to say no when something feels mispositioned, even if it looks profitable on the surface. Short-term gain that violates alignment often produces long-term loss. This is why the sages taught that peace in the soul is a sign of correct positioning. When a decision is aligned, even if it is challenging, it carries a sense of inner coherence. When a decision is misaligned, even if it promises gain, it produces inner disturbance. Learning to trust this signal is part of spiritual maturity. Another daily practice of alignment is gratitude. Gratitude is not politeness, it is orientation. It trains the mind to recognize flow rather than absence. In Jewish tradition, the day begins with a declaration of gratitude before any request is made. This is intentional. It places the soul in alignment before action begins. The New Testament reflects this same principle when it teaches that those who are faithful with little are entrusted with much. Faithfulness is alignment in small things. It is consistency. It is coherence between belief and behavior. If you examine your life honestly, you may begin to see patterns. Times when you were aligned and things moved effortlessly. Times when you were misaligned and effort increased while results diminished. This awareness is not meant to create guilt. It is meant to create clarity. Clarity restores choice. Alignment is not about becoming rigid. It is about becoming responsive. When the soul is aligned, it adjusts naturally. When it is misaligned, it resists correction. As you absorb this, notice what feels called into adjustment. Not with urgency, with honesty. Alignment does not shout, it invites. And when action follows alignment, abundance no longer needs to be forced. It arrives as a response. There comes a moment in every life when knowledge stops being theoretical and begins to feel personal. Not because something dramatic happens on the outside, but because something quiet shifts within. Alignment often announces itself this way. Not with noise, but with recognition. A subtle awareness that says, "This explains what I have been feeling all along." Jewish wisdom teaches that the soul always knows when it is out of position. Anxiety, restlessness, chronic dissatisfaction, and the sense of always striving without arriving are not moral failures. They are signals. Signals that something within is slightly misaligned, even if everything looks functional on the surface. There is a story told among the sages of a man who spent years praying for success. He studied, worked, planned, and persevered, yet his efforts produced inconsistent results. One day, exhausted, he asked his teacher why heaven seemed silent. The teacher did not answer his question. Instead, he asked him where he was standing. Confused, the man replied that he was standing right in front of him. The teacher gently moved him a few steps to the side and said, "Now you are standing where the light enters." Nothing about the room changed. Only position did. And yet, everything changed. This story is not about physical space. It is about inner orientation. Many people live their lives one step away from alignment, unaware that this small misplacement affects everything downstream. When alignment is restored, life does not suddenly become effortless, but it becomes coherent. Effort begins to produce proportionate results. Energy stops leaking. Focus sharpens. Peace replaces constant urgency. Emotional alignment is especially important. Jewish wisdom never separates emotion from spirituality. Fear, when left unchecked, contracts the soul. Chronic fear creates a posture of defense, and defense blocks reception. This is why the Torah repeatedly instructs the people not to fear when moving into expansion. Fear does not protect abundance. It repels it. Trust, on the other hand, is not passivity. It is alignment with continuity. It is the inner agreement that provision does not end with the present moment. When trust is present, decisions become clearer. When trust is absent, even correct decisions feel heavy. Many people unknowingly confuse struggle with virtue. They believe that constant pressure proves worthiness. Jewish wisdom teaches the opposite. Strain is not evidence of righteousness. Alignment is when something is aligned. It bears weight naturally. When it is misaligned, even small pressure causes damage. This is why the Torah speaks so often about peace. Peace is not the absence of challenge. It is the presence of harmony. Harmony between intention and action. Harmony between effort and rest. Harmony between desire and direction. Consider how often people push themselves forward while their inner life is pulling them back. This inner contradiction drains energy. Alignment resolves this tension. When inner and outer movement match, progress accelerates without burnout. There is also a profound emotional healing that occurs when alignment is restored. Regret softens. Shame loosens its grip. The past is no longer a burden, but a teacher. Jewish tradition honors this process deeply. Teshuvah, return, is always possible. Correction is not humiliation. It is dignity restored. Stories of transformation often sound dramatic, but most real transformation is quiet. A person releases a habit, changes a boundary, honors rest, speaks differently, gives with intention, stops forcing outcomes, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, life begins to respond differently. Abundance is not always immediate wealth. Sometimes it appears first as clarity, sometimes as peace, sometimes as the removal of constant anxiety. These are not lesser blessings. They are foundations. Without them, financial success collapses under its own weight. One of the most compassionate truths in Jewish wisdom is this: misalignment does not disqualify you. It invites you. The moment awareness arises, correction becomes available. Heaven does not demand punishment. It responds to realignment. If this message is resonating emotionally, take a moment and reflect. Where have you been forcing what could be aligned? Where have you been holding fear instead of trust? Where have you been running when stillness was required, or staying when movement was needed? Write what comes to your heart in the comments. Not for performance, for clarity. Alignment is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming honest. Honest with yourself. Honest with your patterns. Honest with your position. As this awareness settles, understand that this teaching is not isolated. There is much more wisdom like this. Teachings focused on spiritual alignment for life, for clarity, for peace, and for true success that is sustainable and meaningful. If this kind of content speaks to you, stay connected. There is a path here, and it is meant to be walked slowly, consciously, and with intention. Alignment is a lifelong practice. And when it becomes a way of life, success stops being something you chase. It becomes something that recognizes you. There is a moment when wisdom stops being something you hear and becomes something you must choose. Alignment always leads to a decision point. Not dramatic, not theatrical, quiet, but irreversible. Once you understand that growth, blessing, and abundance respond to spiritual alignment, you can no longer live da mesma forma. Awareness changes responsibility, and responsibility invites action. Jewish wisdom teaches that the world responds not to intention alone, but to alignment sustained over time. This is why the Torah speaks so often about walking, not leaping. Walking implies consistency, direction, faithfulness in small adjustments. True abundance is not built in a moment of inspiration, but in a lifestyle of alignment. When a person aligns their inner life with divine law, something subtle but powerful happens. Resistance softens. Opportunities appear without force. Relationships recalibrate. Finances begin to stabilize, not because money magically multiplies, but because leakage stops. Energy that was once scattered begins to consolidate. Focus replaces anxiety. Clarity replaces confusion. This is the difference between success that exhausts and success that sustains. One is driven by fear of lack. The other is carried by alignment with order. The sages taught that blessing recognizes alignment, the way light recognizes an open window. Light does not need to be persuaded. It simply enters where there is openness. Abundance works the same way. When spiritual laws are honored, growth becomes a natural response. But alignment is not something you achieve once and forget. It is a practice, a posture, a way of seeing life. It requires reminders, structure, and wisdom that can guide you when emotion clouds judgment. This is why teachings like these were never meant to be isolated moments. They were meant to form a framework for living. If this message has stirred something in you, if you sense that these principles explain patterns you have lived through, then I want to invite you to go deeper. There is a resource created exactly for this purpose. The Jewish Prosperity ebook was designed to guide you step by step through the spiritual laws of abundance, according to Jewish wisdom. It expands on the principles you are hearing, connects them to daily life, and offers clarity on how to remain aligned even when challenges arise. This is not theory, it is application. It is wisdom translated into practice. To access the Prosperity Judaica ebook, the link is in the description of this video and also in the first pinned comment. Take the time to explore it. Read it slowly. Reflect. Apply what resonates. Let it become a companion on your path of alignment. Remember this, and let it settle deeper than motivation, deeper than emotion, deeper even than belief. Abundance is not a reward for effort alone. Effort without harmony produces exhaustion. Discipline without alignment produces frustration. Intelligence without order produces complexity, not growth. Abundance is a response to harmony. It flows when the inner world and the outer world stop arguing with each other and begin moving in the same direction. When your thoughts, your actions, and your intentions are aligned, life responds differently. Not because the world has changed, but because resistance has softened. Friction decreases. Flow increases. You begin to notice that what once required force now requires presence. What once demanded struggle now responds to clarity. Doors do not always open loudly, but they open steadily. You were never designed to live in constant survival mode. Jewish wisdom teaches that endless struggle is not a virtue. It is a signal. A signal that something in the system is mispositioned. Growth was always meant to be sustainable. Expansion was always meant to be supported. Blessing was always meant to feel coherent, not chaotic. You were not meant to chase blessing as if it were running away from you. Chasing implies distance. Chasing implies separation. The ancient teachings tell a different story. Blessing is not ahead of you. It is around you. It is waiting for alignment. You are meant to stand where blessing flows naturally, where effort and outcome recognize each other, where the soul does not need to fight the order of creation. Standing in the right place changes everything. Not instantly, not magically, but faithfully. One aligned choice after another begins to rewrite patterns that once felt permanent. When alignment becomes consistent, chaos loses authority. Confusion fades. Anxiety loosens its grip. Decisions become clearer, not because life becomes simpler, but because you become centered. As you carry this message with you, allow it to become practical. Examine your choices, not with judgment, but with honesty. Notice where fear has been guiding decisions that were meant to be guided by trust. Notice where urgency has replaced wisdom. Notice where you have been forcing outcomes that require repositioning instead. Adjust gently. Jewish wisdom does not teach violent transformation. It teaches return. A soft correction in direction often produces a powerful shift in destination. Alignment does not demand perfection. It responds to sincerity. Even small adjustments, made consistently, reopen channels that have been closed for years. Align consistently, not when it feels convenient, but when it feels necessary. Alignment is not a mood. It is a posture. A decision to honor order over impulse. Truth over comfort. Wisdom over speed. When alignment becomes habitual, abundance no longer feels accidental. It feels logical. It feels deserved, not in the moral sense, but in the lawful sense. And then, quietly, you will begin to notice changes. Growth that feels natural. Blessing that feels appropriate. Opportunities that feel timed rather than rushed. Prosperity that does not threaten your peace, but supports it. You will realize that abundance did not arrive suddenly. It had been waiting for you to arrive where it flows. May your path be ordered, not rigid, but coherent. Ordered in a way that supports movement rather than restricts it. May your steps be guided, not by fear of loss, but by clarity of direction. May confusion be replaced with discernment, and haste be replaced with wisdom. May your efforts be supported, not resisted. May the work of your hands find cooperation instead of obstruction. May what you build endure because it is aligned, not because it is forced. May your energy be preserved, your focus refined, and your intentions purified. May your life come into alignment with divine wisdom, not as an abstract idea, but as a lived reality. May your inner world and outer world stop pulling in opposite directions and begin moving together. May harmony replace inner conflict, and peace replace constant striving. And may prosperity meet you where alignment has prepared the way. Not prosperity that inflates the ego, but prosperity that stabilizes life. Not prosperity that isolates, but prosperity that allows generosity, contribution, and continuity. Prosperity that feels like support, not pressure. If you remain connected here, you will continue to encounter teachings like this. Teachings focused on spiritual alignment for life, for clarity, for emotional balance, and for true success that endures beyond seasons and circumstances. Wisdom that does not promise shortcuts, but offers foundations. Guidance that does not manipulate fear, but restores orientation. Stay aligned, stay aware, stay receptive. Because when alignment becomes your way of life, abundance no longer needs to be pursued. It finds you.